One of the keys to a happy life is truly enjoying your work. And no one does their job better or enjoys it more than Gaya Cantora. And you're going to enjoy listening to her doing her job. Did you hear me? You will enjoy listening.
The Flying Man, written by Gaya Cantora. She gets to the restaurant 30 minutes earlier than she's supposed to. There's no way she'd go into a situation like this blind. She has to pick the table, know where the exits are, and spend some time watching the waitstaff. For obvious reasons, she's not a very trusting creature, and she leaves nothing to chance. When she's satisfied with the environment, she selects a table that will allow her to see him when he arrives. She already knows what to look for, because several images were included in the digital dossier she was given. He is a looker, to be certain, but that doesn't matter to her. She represents dollar signs, no more. A lot of dollar signs, to be exact. She has no idea what this poor fool did to make someone put him on her radar, but the price was paid, the mark identified. Now, here she sits, waiting to complete the job. Most of the time, people think of sirens as the mermaids that lull unsuspecting sailors to their death in the murky sea. And she's willing to admit there's some truth to that lore. She has plenty of ancestors that have made sure the sharks were well fed over the centuries. Thankfully, her mother's ingenuity and forward thinking made it easier for she and her two sisters to be women of the modern age. Mom was a good student of human and natural behavior alike. She was so good at finding greed and weaknesses in all creatures that she found a way to make it lucrative. Matter of fact, that's how she met their father, a dashing incubus that killed people for a living. Gaya and her sisters were completing contracts in the family business by the time they were teenagers. The thing is, Gaya took to it better than her siblings. They're good, but she is masterful. Her mother used to say Gaya has the perfect interplay of her parents' traits: the raw sexuality of her father and the cunning allure of her mother. More importantly, she knows how to use those traits. Which is why she is sitting in an upscale hotel restaurant, waiting for a male who will not survive the night. She gives a sexy half-smile when she sees him coming toward her. He is tall and handsome, just like he was described. When he sees her, his smile broadens, and it's obvious she's more beautiful than he expected. She snorts inwardly at his arrogance. She doesn't need to read his mind to see his plans for her playing in his eyes like an X-rated movie. She doesn't need to read his mind, but she does anyway. She considers it helpful intel. She stifles a giggle when she sees herself doggy-style on the bed, him happily pounding behind her. He approaches her table right at the point where he sweeps her hair from her shoulder so he can grab on and really give it to her. To fuel her seduction, she mimics the gesture she sees in his mind and makes sure her hair falls over one shoulder the same way. She lifts her lithe dancer's body from the chair gracefully and extends her hand with that same sexy smile. "Hi, I'm Gaya." He stammers for just a split second, and she knows he's hooked. They spend the next several hours laughing, eating, and drinking bottles of expensive wine. When he invites her to his place, she purrs, "There's no need to leave. I have a room here." She stands before he can respond and walks away, making sure her hips sway hypnotically. He follows behind her like a man on a mission, and by the time they reach the elevator, he has his hand at the small of her back. She knows men well enough to know that gesture is a way of claiming her. No matter, he can have his delusions. All through the ride to her 10th floor room, she makes sure there are enough kisses and touches to support the images of them that play in his mind. Finally, They reach her floor, and she tugs him from the elevator to her door. She opens it quickly while he puts his hands all over her body. She takes a deep breath to mask the disgust she feels while he paws at her. She peels him from her frame and pushes him toward a chair near the bar. "Let me make you a drink. I promise you don't want this to go too quickly." He groans but acquiesces and sits. She strides over to the bar, unzipping her dress as she does. With her back to him, she slips out of the garment and lets it fall to the floor casually, revealing sheer ivory-colored lingerie underneath. She turns, holding a glass of scotch, and smiles. "See anything you like?" He leers at her hungrily while he fists his cock through his pants. "You know I do. Come here." She doesn't move. He needs to say it for it to hold any meaning for her. She has to know that he wants her. "Tell me, or I'm not moving." He groans and stands, stalking toward her. "You're killing me, woman." She snorts behind the glass as she sips, because his statement is truer than he knows. He wraps his arms around her and makes sure his length is pressed against her middle. "You feel that? That should tell you how bad I want to fuck you." She grins happily. That's what I needed to hear. She wraps her arms around his shoulders and starts to hum softly. He takes that opportunity to start kissing her neck and palming her breast. The tune she's humming takes shape and becomes a hypnotic song. She knows when it affects him because he freezes and his eyes glaze over. A smile crosses her lips and she tiptoes to whisper in his ear, "You have been a very bad boy, haven't you?" He nods, still entranced. "You have to pay, you know that, right?" Another silent nod from him. She takes a step back and looks at the balcony door, then back to him. "How will you pay, How will you atone for your bad behavior?" She looks at the balcony again, and this time he follows her gaze. She walks around him, dragging her hand across his chest and whispering in his ear, "That is an excellent idea. It will please me. You do want to please me, don't you?" She walks toward the chair he once sat in and drops into it gracefully. Again, she starts to sing. Watching them, you would think they were a married couple on holiday, not an assassin and her prey. Her volume increases, and he begins to move toward the balcony. The melody stops just long enough for her to encourage him along. "A little faster, please." Unable to disobey her, his bare feet shuffle across the floor with more determination. By the time he reaches the balcony door, he's running full speed. The handsome man with the hit on his life doesn't scream when he dives off the balcony of the 10th floor. She knows when he hits the ground, based on the car alarm he must have activated when he landed, and the screams of passers-by. She smiles, finishes her drink, and stands. A minute or so later, she's in a room down the hall starting a much-needed bath. She can't wait to wash away the feel of his hands on her body. She lays back in the luxurious tub and sips a flute of very expensive wine, paid for by the flying man. She's turned up the music so when the authorities arrive to investigate, they won't disturb her. She hates being disturbed after a job. This is her time to remove the residue from whatever lowlife found their way onto her radar and to regain some sense of normalcy. She glances over at the lingerie on the floor and decides to throw it away. He liked it too much. She'll never wear it again. As she finishes the last of the wine, her phone chimes and she groans because it's her next job. Has to be. Jimmy told her a few days ago that he had a line on a high-dollar job that could have her set for the rest of the year. Jimmy can be a bit of a shit, so at the time she wondered if it was real. He told her he would contact her tonight, right about this time. She leans over so she can see her phone, and sure enough, the shit sent her a message. She dries her hands and swipes her finger across the app. Kingston is your contact. Call him at the number below in 10 minutes exactly. He adds a bunch of exclamation points at the end, like that would make her more compliant. She snorts and throws the phone on the floor. You know, maybe one day somebody will pay her to kill Jimmy, the shit. Hell, she might even do that one for free, just to be rid of him. Ah, she sighs, laying back in the tub, her eyes closing peacefully.